As a chief, I'm going to suggest to you that it's really important that you spend more time on your own, just for thinking. And I know that might sound a little counterintuitive. It might sound also a little unrealistic, given all that you've got coming at you and all the demands on your attention, and indeed the imperative to be continually responding, continually taking action, continually progressing the strategic agenda. But what I'm going to suggest is that it's actually quite hard to be truly effective in all of that if you're not taking time to get out of the noise, get above the noise, and giving yourself space to deeply reflect on what's going on in your world. And in fact, this came through in a lovely piece of research that the McKinsey's guys did. I was listening to the McKinsey podcast, I recommend that. And they did a survey of 100 plus CEOs. And they asked them the question, how much time should you be spending on your own? And they came back, I guess across the average of the respondents, they came back saying, well, probably I should be spending 10% of my time on my own. And then they asked, and how much time should you be spending in internal meetings? And they said, well, probably ideally, I should be spending about 15% of my time in internal meetings. I can hear some of you laughing just listening to that. And so they said, okay, well, that's kind of the ideal, but what do you guess you actually dedicate? How much time do you actually dedicate to being on your own? And how much time do you actually dedicate to being in internal meetings? And then again, the average response came back as something like, well, I guess I probably give around 5% of my time just to myself for thinking and being on my own. And then probably realistically, I'm probably doing about 30% of my time in internal meetings. And now here's the interesting part. Then the McKinsey guys got to get into their schedules and get into their kind of scheduling data. And they did an analysis to find out in reality, actually, how much time were they spending on their own and how much time were they giving to internal meetings. Now, they didn't say on the podcast how much time they gave to internal meetings, but what they did say is they found out that these CEOs were in fact spending, you guessed it, 0% of their time on their own, just for thinking. 0%, even though they know that they should be spending 10% of their time. And of course, we can understand why that might be the case. You know, the reality of the role and the demands of the role make that very difficult. And I don't know what the percentage was for internal meetings, but I'm guessing it's something like 80 or 90% in internal meetings. And I'm sure you can relate to that. But of course, it is difficult. And my point of view is that it takes tremendous personal conviction to assert that kind of level of time for yourself, just for thinking. I mean, tremendous personal conviction to do that, to be able to push back on all the demands that are coming at you and saying, you know what, it's actually more important for me to have time to be above this and to be thinking strategically and deeply about what we're doing and how we're going to do it. And I've got to tell you, I am hearing more and more from leaders that they're understanding this, that they're recognizing that their value is really created in this 10%. And then what I do with chiefs, with my work around self-realized leadership and helping leaders to become more self-aware, is to really establish that core conviction that makes this kind of behavior really a more natural response to all the demands that are coming at them. So however you do it, my encouragement is for you to take a look at your calendar this week and go, how could I find 10%, maybe even just 5% of my time, and maybe it's only 2.5% to start with, but some time just to be able to reflect deeply on what's going on in my world.